Well, welcome everyone to day two of the 17th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm still Bob Hales and I'm still your moderator. We have with us Dr. Carolyn Stevenson, who's a full-time faculty member in the Professional Studies Department, Department of Multidisciplinary and Professional Studies at Purdue University Global. She's got a doctorate from Roosevelt University, an MBA from Kaplan, an MA in communications, and a BA in English. Wow. And she's been cited for her expertise in online learning, qualitative research, open educational resources, AI, and prior learning. Boy. And that's just what she does in the mornings. So Carolyn's going to talk about next gen AI, NotebookLM, and Gemini. Friend or foe? Carolyn, take it away.
Thank you so much, Bob, for that stellar introduction. And also, I want to thank everyone for being here as well. AI has, in the last couple of years, especially, really transformed our educational landscape. When ChatGTP came out, really into that digital landscape, I don't know if how everyone else felt, but it was like when Course Hero and all of these things happen, we're just like, it's disruptive, it's chaotic. What's going to happen with critical thinking and learning? And when we fast forward now to a couple of years into AI being in our educational landscape, our professional landscape, our personal landscape, what we can find is that, is it a friend or is it a foe? And it does depend on the usage. So this presentation is going to cover some information related to um, a project that actually at Purdue Global last year, so December of 2023, we were actually called upon to do an experimental usage of Notebook LM. And so there's a lot of new directions we can use these tools, and the question thus becomes, and it's like when the internet came out, or Second Life many moons ago for those early adopters, those digital natives. Uh, how can we as educators, or if you want to go into that personal space, actually leverage these tools for making life more effective for our learners, for ourselves? And that's really the bottom line. That's really what it all comes down to. And these tools are have been out now for a little bit of time. Notebook LM just released sort of the experimental label that was on it. Gemini's now into the landscape as well. But these things are constantly, of course, changing, evolving, and being refined. And so how can we use these tools again to help us in our teaching and learning? So as technology is constantly changing and advancing, we have to, I think it's an ethical obligation for us to assess how we can use this. So Notebook LM is now not an experimental product anymore. It's really getting more and more defined, and it does have the power and promise of language models. So it's a very different kind of notebook, one in which the user can use existing documents and notes to help the user learn, create, and brainstorm. And so it's something that's very, very different from even just using a general chatbot, or especially from our learners' perspective, using something like ChatGPT, Copilot, etc., for gathering information, because the power lies into the user. So as educators, we can curate the information we're providing to our learners. And I think that's a huge difference. So this presentation is really considering some of the future research, some of the ethical implications of emerging generative AI technology, specifically looking at NotebookLM, it's out of the experimental stage, and Gemini too. So AI generated tools really do hold potential as well as challenges for researchers as well as learners. And technology, as we know, constantly evolving. We as educators or personal users of these tools really have to assess how we can use this. So again, as experimental OpenAI tools get defined, we're looking at here NotebookLM and Gemini, but what's on the horizon? Not in the lab with the Google Labsters anymore, but things are just percolating and brewing. So NotebookLM can house these resources as well as notes, as well as save time for students, by utilizing these specific resources that are curated by the instructor. This is the big, I think, shift, because our learners are not just in the past, like, for example, going out, doing an internet search, as much as, we like to promote use of online libraries. The fact is, sometimes they go out there, they're just whatever comes up, they're using this as as their sources in their research. But it's really beneficial because when the faculty member can curate this and the learner can interact with it, it becomes very, very beneficial for teaching and learning. So as with any new technology, it's the user that must make these ethical decisions on any generative AI tool. And we, as the instructors and educators, it is our responsibility to show what ethical use looks like as well. So a significant component of our presentation today is a case study in which it was conducted in collaboration with Purdue University Global and Google on this relatively new AI tool called NotebookLM. And this was a very unique partnership that was done in December through early February of 2024, in which Purdue Global was the inaugural institution to work alongside with Google in kind of doing some trials, refining and enhancing NotebookLM through real world applications in a graduate setting. So where this was used, a little bit of my background, in the Department of Professional Studies, as a faculty member, I teach the capstone course, which is the culminating experience for their degree program. And I also teach in some various diversity courses. And in this case, the pilot was done in one of my diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace courses. So what was really fun and very, very exciting was that it was piloted to different undergraduate courses as well. So we had math faculty doing this. I was professional studies, we had business. So we had various disciplines collaborating with the Google Labsters. And what was fun, this is where we also have to sort of ingrain in our learners that learning can be fun. But we were working side by side with the Labsters, meaning the chatter that was coming in, you could pull up the actual chatter that was happening with these folks at Google that were creating the code, redefining NotebookLM, and we had the opportunity to raise questions. So with any system, it was kind of like chunky junky, like, why can we only put at that time 10 resources? Why why can we only curate 10 resources and put them into a folder for these learners? The math instructor would state that there was problems with some of the statistical analysis and how that can generate into graphics or other visuals. So it was, and then we would convene and meet cross-disciplinary on what we're experiencing. And our students, is fully transparent too. Our students also were ones that participated. So it really does. If you're not familiar with this, this little video will show out what it's about. If it will, I'll go back and hopefully it'll play. So it was fun because we got to work with them.
Hey there, AI enthusiasts. Today, we've got some exciting news from Google Labs. They've just launched an experimental AI-first notebook called NotebookLM. This cutting-edge notebook is designed to help you gain insights faster by using language models paired with existing content. It's like having your own personal AI assistant right at your fingertips. NotebookLM is packed with some pretty cool features. It can summarize facts, explain complex ideas, and even brainstorm new connections based on the sources you select. It's like having a super smart study buddy who can help you make sense of all that information overload. But what sets NotebookLM apart is its ability to ground the language model in your own notes and sources. This means that the AI becomes personalized to you and becomes well-versed in the information that's relevant to you. It's like having an AI that speaks your language. Now, I know what you're thinking, privacy concerns. Well, fear not. NotebookLM only has access to the source material that you choose to upload. Your files and dialogue with the AI are completely private and not visible to other users. So, you can rest assured that your information is safe and secure. Now, let's address some of the comments from the community. Some people have expressed concerns about Google's track record of killing off products. And hey, we get it. Google has had its fair share of product cancellations in the past. But let's not forget that this is an experimental project from Google Labs. It's all about pushing the boundaries and exploring new possibilities. So, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and see where this exciting journey takes us. Others have been discussing the technical aspects of NotebookLM and its potential monetization. And hey, that's a valid point. As with any new technology, there's always the question of how it will be monetized. But for now, let's focus on the incredible potential that NotebookLM brings to the table. It's a tool that can help us navigate the vast sea of information and gain insights like never before. So, whether you're a student looking for a study buddy or a professional seeking a smarter way to work, NotebookLM is definitely worth checking out. It's an AI notebook that's here to revolutionize the way we learn, think, and create. That's all for today's AI news. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more exciting updates in the world of artificial intelligence. Until next time, keep exploring and keep innovating.
All right, and that is, so I'm taking you from early 2024 with that video because it truly is out of that experimental stage, but you can kind of see the progression in terms of how the AI technology has grown, been refined, and advanced. And so to make it kind of simple, after watching that video, what is it? Well, it's an AI powered notebook that allows users to explore ideas, answer questions, and the key here is using that power of a language model grounded in documents that the user, the educator, selects. So you can think of it as a personal AI collaborator that has read all materials important to the user's work and can instantly summarize or create the information that the user needs. And so in this case, this is heavy text. I realize that, but I wanted to just sort of grab this. It was very, very timely because while I was working on, in collaboration, with Google, with Purdue Global, a colleague was interested in writing actually a chapter on ethical use of AI. And it was like, well, okay, none of us, we never have enough time or energy to actually publish, but it was very, very timely because I was working on this project. So this chapter kind of turned into a case study as well. So this is the full description so you can get a good big picture of how we were using this. And so it was selected courses throughout Purdue Global. It was actually beginning 2023, and it was optional. And I think that's really important when we are introducing or trying out different forms of technology, AI in our classroom, and it's not fully explored, developed, but it's something that's in that experimental stage. It's important to let those learners know this is completely optional. So it's fully transparent. The way the classes flow here at PG, we have live seminars once a week. So I'm meeting with my learners and we're discussing content and answering questions. But I was able to, sort of real time explain this to them and ethically discuss the importance that this is completely optional. It's enrichment. If you choose to use it, great. If not, you are under no obligation to do so. And then gathered the data afterwards in terms of their user experiences. So some examples that included a hands-on activity during one of these live seminars, in which it might be a discussion on a topic of that. Also, we have asynchronous discussion boards. So in our 10-week format, every week we have these graded discussions, and I would put the links I separated it out, the content by the 10-week modules in which our classes run. So the content was curated into separate folders, these notebooks. And if you can visualize, old school, the old pen and paper spiral bound with those blue lines are notebooks, that's exactly what it was. In the past, things kind of became a little clunky, or you can, use whatever platform, D2L, Brightspace, Canvas, oh my, any of those, and put it into a folder. This was actually nice because it was highly organized and optional. Would you like some more, for example, some more information on unconscious bias? Check out, Unit 3 notebook. I put a lot of different current resources in there. What made it very dynamic, specifically for the courses that I teach, the capstone and the diversity courses, was that things were changing constantly. So unlike maybe a course that was, really theory based, if you're, this stuff, well, all of our courses, actually, content always changes. You think about teaching ethics, you can go back to grounded theory, but then, along comes AI. What do? Now we have a new ethical dilemma we have to pose to our learners, and we have to show them ethical means. So it was nice because real time, information was coming out, and I'm putting them into this notebook. So I was one of the faculty that, of course, participated at that time in late 2023, early 2024, when it was still in the experimental module. And we had that direct impact, making this tool more effective and user-friendly. Again, it's all about the user experience, no matter how robust the technology is, whether it's something related to graphic design or AI use. If things are way too complicated, then it becomes something where it's not worth the time to use it because, especially in a population of the majority of our students, we teach adults, and adults are, of course, managing childcare, elder care responsibilities. They've got full-time work and all these volunteer activities in their school. So again, stressing the importance of being optional. It is also an opportunity to join that feedback loop. I would get the information on a weekly basis, and actually, all of my learners opted into using this. And with our live seminars, we would talk about this. What are you finding useful? What would you like to see? Like, have this dream list of everything you would like to include with this tool, and how is it going to make your researching, your studies, in a sense, easier, more effective, more organized. And then that reported back up into, sort of others that were using it as well. Yeah, thanks, Bob. You've used NotebookLM to create podcasts of material. You can listen while doing other things. It is freaky, and I'm going to say freaky good, because, you think about, okay, well, if our learners, people, let's just say if you're in college or not, people as a whole, we're wired into stuff. We're listening to podcasts, or at the start even of this session, kind of the comments, Amir said, I go back and I listen to the recordings. I do the same thing too, because, it's targeted, instead of just a random podcast, sessions that I wasn't able to attend, I can go in and listen to it. And so this is really nice because it's a high level organizational system. Bob's example of using it in a personal context with podcasts, it has a lot of use because things are all just organized, right? So there's a lot of benefits, versus, because the question I think would become, well, why can't we just, rely on other AI generative tools, ChatGPT, things like that? But the big difference is that between NotebookLM, oh, and by the way, I am a faculty member that was on this project. I do not work for Google. I'm not, selling anything here. I go back to what's effective for myself, what's effective for my learner. For example, even if you're thinking about, we'll piggyback off of Bob's comment with those podcasts. Let's say you like to cook and you want to curate all these recipes. You're finding all this stuff. And for holidays, you're making certain dishes. And yes, you have it, organized somewhere else. You can actually, create that for your own recipes, or, your cats. Maybe you foster cats and you want to put them all in there. So it has a lot of really good personal and professional usage to really think about. And the question is, of course, with anything, how is it used? So Madeline says, my students found it very helpful to use NotebookLM as they made sense of complicated research articles when writing a literature review. Absolutely. And that's one of those benefits, because what you can do is get those comments. So when a Google Doc when you upload it into NotebookLM, it generates a summary. So when you're thinking about even, research and journals, when we look at a peer-reviewed journals, there's the abstract. So yes, Amir, it can generate a summary based on bullet points of ideas. So let's say, for example, it's an article where there's just the key points are in a bullet format. You can ask it. It's all goes back to prompt engineering. So how we're speaking, it's sort of like it's just creating a visual, I think, connection between the way we use language, what we're talking to this is like its own language, AI. So prompt engineering, really defining the way we're asking those questions and how we're asking it is really important. So it's a matter of asking it to do it. Yeah, of course. And keep those comments coming in into the chat. I'd rather address that than have it. We can have time at the end. AI is so interesting, and there's so many things that we could have philosophical debates on. But like to piggyback off of Amir too, I mean, NotebookLM can be used to summarize like those facts, take big complex ideas, and also brainstorm new connections. You might say, well, that sounds a lot like ChatGPT, but it houses things. It's all based on the language models. So the one of the things with this too, and actually any, if you're introducing AI use in an ethical way in your classrooms, just give a quick discussion on prompt engineering, how to ask it the correct way, and then also stress too, just like you go old school with spell check or Grammarly, it's not always intended the way you want it to be. So it's important to have that discussion prior to really, going into and saying, yes, let's use this in our classroom. So it can create these summaries, it can create outlines of documents. So for example, I have some screenshots I'll share out too. But when you're showing, here's a resource and it's pretty complex and it's really long. Oh, and by the way, I'm using this in addition to the required readings of the course. You got to keep things real in the sense that these learners want, everyone, we want to have that information, but realistically, you're asking me now to have a few more hours of reading. How do I even manage that? So you show them how to use the tool, show them how to create the summary, right? Oh, absolutely. Deborah brings up a great point about hallucination, and it is important to be careful because it hallucinates. I've had it give me incorrect answers to quiz questions or improperly use a theoretical concept. That's a great point, Deborah. Again, if you think I compare it with my learners to like using spell check or Grammarly, don't take it like this is exactly correct. It comes up with some strange things, oftentimes too. I think the Grammarly or even, spell check is one of those good examples so they can understand the ramifications that this is not like all encompassing. So that's really important. You have to be careful. You have to train too. So and Madeline says, I read an article or blog about podcast feature and how it tended to make the female voice seem less educated and knowledgeable. Yeah, there was definitely some bias with that. And if you actually think too, if you go back to that initial video I had, that AI generated avatar woman sounded like, it's an avatar woman and less educated. And those are those things that have to be reported up to those communities. So if you're really interested in this stuff too, you can actually, I think you could probably join a Google community where they're talking about some of these things and ways to improve it, because it is important. And we're all coming in with lenses based on perception, touch points for us, whether it's the woman sounding less educated or the diversity of what the voices sound like, the avatars look like, the environment, all of these things. I think it's important to tell people, in those communities, hey, this is really creating bias. These are awesome points. I want to thank the audience members for your active engagement in this as well. So I took a screenshot. This is from when I was using it for my course, and again, just highlighting a few features. It could be used to ask questions about the documents. You could upload them. You can upload PowerPoint slides, or math is great too. And it generates those summaries. I think that's really key, especially for any of our learners, but at that master's level too, having the opportunity to create summaries, but ensuring that you show the students, the learners, how to accurately review the information and watch out for those hallucinations, because hallucinations, creating false information, is common with all of these tools. It can also be used to find commonalities across the documents. So if you're curating and you have like 10 different sources, what's the most important information from this collective group of resources? I think this is really beneficial because it can take all of the information from various sources, find those commonalities, create those themes, and summarize it as well. I'm a qualitative researcher by nature, and when I think about many moons ago back at that dissertation writing, wow, can you imagine the power of having hundreds of pages of transcripts and how you come up with the themes from all of these interviews? It can be a great time saver as well. It can revolutionize, I think, the way research can be done. Because in the past, I think the formula I was given from my dissertation chair, again, a little bit of time ago, but was, an hour in the field is 2 times in analysis. So whether or not you're doing your own transcripts in that qualitative research modality, or you're having it transcribed, you still have to analyze that. And I just remember it was so laborious going through and all of those interview transcripts and trying to identify those themes, trying to identify those sub themes. So NotebookLM can also be used to create a personal AI assistant that is can help you with finding information that's useful to them. So informational overload is a challenge for everyone, and I think this is so true because the excitement that generates whenever we have a new technology tool, or here's the latest and greatest, whatever that looks like, it can be overwhelming. And Amir, that's a great question, comment too. I'm glad it can help with generating themes from the transcripts. I wonder if the research publishers would accept it. And I think that's where the ethical use comes in. And I think that it has to be cited that in a reference that if you're working on that section of a chapter, or one of your learners is working on their dissertation, that themes were generated by using the AI tool. Again, giving that credit to how those themes came about. So, if you're working on that, I actually have not fully done that deep level of qualitative work in a while. The last publication was this one, which was more a case study on on the usage. So I think that raises a lot of good questions for people working in the qualitative space, that how do we give credit for identifying those themes? And it's my suspicion now Amir, you're gonna got a little project for me. So I want to find that out, because I think you have to give credit for using the tool for generating the theme. So when you think about using SPSS for crunching quantitative data, you state that. So I think you have to state that these themes were generated by using AI. I definitely, that has to be there. That's a really good question. And I always think of technology, specifically all these things that are pushing out with AI, it's like an onion. Okay, so when we start to peel away the onion, it gets more and more like, wow, every layer, more tears come in our eyes, and we're digging in deeper. It's unraveling the sweater, and have to think into that. So that's a good point. Some journals accept AI usage and some do not. So it all depends. And I don't know. I can't really have that crystal ball and look into the future and say, will academic journals, professional journals reject or accept AI? I think it's going to depend on that publisher, but I think it's definitely ethical for us as the researcher, the writer, the educator, the user, the student, the learner, whatever label, whatever role we are using this, is to disclose the use of it. So in addition to curating those resources, it's nice because there's a lot of I try to correlate this with something that exists already. When you think about publisher provided materials, you can highlight, it's been going on for a long time, that these ebooks, you can highlight notes, you can add things, put little stickies on there, like a physical text. So NotebookLM has that notes features too, where you can also create a study, like a study guide based on these curated resources. The learner can do that. As the instructor, you can do that as well. And you can save notes in each one of these notebooks that you're creating. And so users can, really have a useful response to NotebookLM into your notes by clicking it to send the notes. So you find, in other words, you find a bunch of text and you send it to notes, and it creates, to kind of go back to Amir's earlier thing about the summary, it can create notes too. And then the users can navigate it, those notes by open notes. So it creates its own notes. So that's a big time saver, I think, too. So this was my 520 class. There's some notes. It's kind of a hard to see here, but I raised a question about, I put some things in there and it generated a whole series of notes. This was a sample guide I created for the class by just asking it to create a guide as well. So I think this is really nice because it saves me a lot of time for putting things together. This is a graduate course, so there's no like, tests involved, but it helped. There's a lot of writing involved in this. This was very helpful for them as well. So the notes feature is another good feature, I think, with NotebookLM. Is there a way to share a notebook that the faculty has created with the students to use the notebook in a certain way? That's a great question, Deborah. And yes, that's how it works. So everything that you, like as the faculty member, the instructor, the educator, are creating in the in these spaces has to be shared out. So it's not like you curate these resources for your course and then it goes viral and it's out there for everyone. Unless you share it, it stays private. And so you have to share it. You have to share that out and make it accessible to those that you want, which personally I like, because you're spending this time for very focused and targeted resources, and just having it accessible to anyone. I'm all I'm all about free resources too. OER is I was early in that game, and that's kind of my jam too, but you want to make sure it's shared out specifically. So that's a great question as well. Again, keep those coming. We'll talk about a little bit more about the hallucinations too. So while NotebookLM source grounding does seem to reduce the risk of model hallucinations, it doesn't take it away. Okay, so it will still hallucinate. And by hallucinating, if you're not familiar with that AI term, it's coming up with stuff that doesn't make sense. It's not in the context of the way you intended it to be. So don't forget, the bottom line, whether it's AI or any kind of new technology, live humans here, we are ethically responsible to do that fact checking. Check the AI's responses against the user's original source material. And when the user is drawing on multiple sources, the tool makes that fact checking easy by accompanying each response with citations, showing the user the most relevant original quotes from your sources. And that's from Martin and Johnson as well. So that's really important. That's a very, very important thing to do. It's not just an end all cure all. Here's some more information about the sharing of the notebooks. So as I mentioned, and that was a great question on that too, is that they can be shared with colleagues or classmates. And there's a share icon in the toolbar. It'll be on that top right corner of the app. So users can grant either viewer or editor to access to another user by adding their email address. So a viewer will only have read-only access to the source documents the user shared with them in that notebook. As an editor, you'll be able to view, add or remove sources in your shared notebook, as well as sharing it with future users. So, if you've used Google, like Google Docs, when you're in a collaborative space, it's that same kind of feature where you can control, you as the author, the educator, if you're preparing these notebooks for your class, you can decide if they just want to, look at it, or if they're able to be an editor and add sources, remove sources as well. I played around with kind of both formats where my students were able to add, to make some notes to things, and then other things it was just static. Here are these curated resources if you choose to use them. So it depends on you, how much, where you, as when you have the authorship, what kind of rights are you given to others and who you want to share that out to. Users can also talk to multiple notebooks at a time. This is kind of a cool feature too, that users can use that source button. It's going to be right next to the input box to toggle between talking to a single source versus talking to all sources in a notebook, which is kind of nice, because if you, again, just want to pull out those bulleted points, those summary points from one source, you can. But if you've got multiple sources in this notebook, you can make that choice, or all, or certain ones. Citations are also available in the notebooks. And a citation is a specific block of that text from your source that is considered relevant to the question you input and use by NotebookLM to build the response for the users. So, this is, of course, little citation there from my class. Of course, with any technology, you're going to have those limitations. And, I posed a question. You can ask these kind of questions to it too. The best way, if you're new to this, or you want to continue to explore things like NotebookLM, Gemini, or any AI generated tool, I don't know. Personally, I think the best thing is you have to use it. You have to kind of roll your sleeves up, get in there tactile, and start to play around with it. So, I asked it, like, what are the limitations of using NotebookLM? And NotebookLM generated some responses. These are going to be outdated, so I'm not going to necessarily read this, because this was in that experimental stage. They took down, experimental, but it has, the potential. The response was to be a very valuable tool for students, researchers, and anyone else who needs to organize a lot of information. Kind of the catch-all for saying we're still working on it. So a lot of risks that are involved, some potential risks related to using NotebookLM, model hallucinations. This is going to keep coming up, and I love the fact that this was brought up in this session. The AI model used in NotebookLM may generate inaccurate or misleading information. So again, it's important to fact check the AI's responses against your original source material and privacy concerns. So NotebookLM is designed to access and use your personal information, such as your Google Docs. So it's important to be aware of how your data is being used and to make sure you are comfortable with it. So some considerations, because jumping, into the latest and greatest, we got to really slow down and think about this. So in this figure 8, NotebookLM generated responses to a question on replacing human resources, human research. So it's unlikely that NotebookLM will replace human research entirely. However, it has the potential to be a valuable tool for researchers by helping them to quickly and easily gather and synthesize information, generate new ideas, and create summaries and outlines of their research. So with that, the bottom line is it all goes back, I think, as the instructor, as the educator. I'm gonna, for time's sake, this is a video, and I think Bob's gonna share out, these recordings. I'm gonna send along my PowerPoint to him too, or you can always email me if you want this deck. Again, that's a short video on some of the new things that are out with NotebookLM too. And then Gemini is a whole different tool. I just wanted to put that on people's radar too. It's separate from NotebookLM, but it is one of the more current large language models, LMM. And it's that system that underpins the types of AI tools you have probably seen and interacted with on the internet. For example, GPT-4, etc. OpenAI's advanced paid-for chat box, that gives it a lot of flexibility to perform a wide range of tasks. And according to Google, they claim Gemini is the first model to outperform human experts in the massive multitask language understanding, one of the more popular methods to test knowledge and problem solving abilities. So this video too, for the sake of time, I want to make sure I don't go over time. That's built in there too. I put some questions for discussion, but I think, Bob, we probably have only about 3 minutes or so, so I won't get into a hard, heavy discussion here on AI use. But I want to let everyone know here, and anyone who may be watching this on a recorded session, you're welcome to use any of this information. These are really good questions, I think, to have deep discussions with in your departments. When you attend a conference, have those deep discussions, really thinking about how you're currently using AI tools in your classroom, if at all, and what that experience is, and to really document that from your usage as an educator, but gather that data, that qualitative data too, from your learners. What is their experience? Because the bottom line is, no matter how much, and it's my opinion, how much AI or technology makes our life as educators easier, what is the user experience? How is it helping them? And some other things too. How can AI help personalize learning experiences for students with different needs and learning styles? This holds a whole level of potential as well. Accessibility and making information accessible too is so critical. And how can educators ensure responsible AI use while preventing over-reliance upon students? This goes into that, I think, that deep discussion. I don't know, you could have like this open session sometime in a conference where we just start to talk about that, where when we're want to use technology, whether it's AI information or some other technology tool, how does that empower and not enable our learners, that over reliance, right? Yes, my research is cited in IGI Global as well. So I can put this actually into the deck, and I'm gonna put my email in here too. If you want to contact me, I'll send this deck to you, and I'll include that article that I wrote with my colleague, Alan Farina, on this topic. But if you email me, hope that's okay, Bob, that people can email me and I'll send them the deck, and I'll send you the deck as well. I'll put that article that pushed out, published, it was about like last March 2024. I'll send that out to everybody as well. But I want to thank everyone. I'm going to stop here for the sake of time, because this is an exciting, it's an exciting topic. And, our conferences have so much information on AI. So I want to thank everyone for their comments. And to Bob for the opportunity to present. And I'm going to stop here and kind of turn it back over to Bob. So I really want to thank you all.
Well, thank you. I find the topic of AI so fascinating. I've been playing with a variety of different models, and it's so interesting. I still have this image of from the Terminator Skynet taking over, and that is a kind of an issue, down the road. How do we ensure it doesn't become bigger than us? But by the way, the session at the top of the hour ties right into this. It's teaching with AI activities and prompts you can use to enhance and engage. So that'll be, I think, a nice flow. So, Carolyn, thank you. We could talk all day about AI, couldn't we?
Absolutely. We could talk all day long. And I like the fact that we have some upcoming sessions at this conference that'll continue this dialogue. The more we talk, the more we learn, the more we share about AI. This is how it's got to flow. And there was a question too on where that chapter was. So I dropped that link into the chat. But I hope everyone has attend as many sessions as you can and just continue that knowledge and learning sharing.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you all for attending this session. And I hope I'll see you all in the next one.